Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to my video podcast on the future of business and technology. Today's topic is artificial intelligence, and in particular, how furniture retailer IKEA is using AI. And we'll dive into the topics of the ethical use of AI, how to foster AI skills in your organization, as well as the future of furniture retail. And to help me untangle this topic today, I'm joined by IKEA's Chief Digital Officer, Parak Parekh. So lovely to have you with us.
Likewise, Bernard. Big thanks for inviting me and a pleasure to join the podcast.
Yeah, so maybe you can give us an overview of IKEA, even though most people will be familiar with this big brand.
As you know, IKEA is a leader in the home furnishing industry, and we run 90 to 95% of the sales volume for IKEA globally in all the touch points, and especially what we call the big blue boxes around the world, but
Mhm.
also the digital presences, be it our web, be it our app, and or our presence on some of the other marketplaces. So pleasure to be here and super excited to have the discussion.
Great. So let's dive straight in and talk about how AI is being used at IKEA. I guess when you think about AI, IKEA might not be the first name that springs to mind when you think about companies using AI. So, how are you using it, and how important do you see AI for IKEA as a whole?
No, indeed, I think when we come from a very retailing background, and for a long part, we had not how to say weaved in digital into our transformation agenda. But since second half of this last decade, we really have said as IKEA we need to embrace digital, and we have started on this transformation journey of moving from a brick and mortar physical retailing to really being a omni-channel retailer. And this is where uh, digital plays a fundamental role in terms of how IKEA shows up in creating better homes for our many customers, in creating better lives for the many people, be it our customers, be it our co-workers, or be it the planet. And
Mm.
of course, with the Better Planet agenda, how do we really serve the society, the community, and the planet overall? So I think we really have been on this agenda. And of course, in the last few years, we also have embraced AI as a part of our digital agenda. So while we started with putting the digital foundations in place, we also said with the emergence of AI, how do we also start weaving this into everything that we do within our digital ecosystem? And while generative AI has been the poster child, generative AI, chat GPT, just in the last years, we have been on the AI journey already from 2019 and 2020. And this is where sometimes it's also creating awareness in the organization that while, yes, you are hearing about the generative AI and the hype around it, we have been on this journey and we have teams who have already been embedding this as a part of the digital ecosystem. Some very traditional AI examples like how do you drive sales steering? How do you drive recommendations on your web platforms? How do you use drones to figure out inventory? How do you use order allocations and to make sure that you are shipping your products from the closest point to where the customer is to help our sustainability agenda, but also help our goals around cost? And some of those topics on traditional AI are something that we have been working already before we kicked off the generative AI agenda as well. But of course, through the last 1.5 years, we also realize generative AI has had been a big, huge leap forward. And we are also starting to talk about what does this mean on our business agenda and how do we start really also bringing generative AI to the fore. And one of the key things we are asking ourselves is uh, with generative AI, the cost to serve the customers has drastically reduced. In some cases, has reduced by 80% or more. So, what are those opportunities where, as an organization, we previously were not tapping into because the cost was prohibitive? We didn't have the manpower, we didn't have the resources, and our co workers to be able to help the customers. What are those opportunities that we can start tapping into?
So
And this is
maybe, Yeah, maybe you can take us through some examples, some practical examples of how you've used traditional AI in your organization in a bit more detail, and then maybe look at examples of how generative AI has reduced the cost to serve.
Absolutely. Let me first start with an example in terms of how we are trying to improve the overall customer experience. So, if I take a traditional user journey post pre the AI era, typically, it would be you visiting our website, we providing you a catalog of the furniture and the home furnishing products that we offer. You deciding what you really want in your home, and then you deciding to put that into the basket, come to our stores to check that out, and then complete the transaction and have it delivered to your home. That's how the traditional customer journey would be.
Hmm.
Now, come AI, we said maybe the customer journey probably is different. You probably are not looking at single pieces of furniture, but you are looking at furnishing your home, bringing that to life. So, what if with the technology we have in visual computation, we allow you to actually, with using your iPhone or your Android phone, take a scan of your room and really in that room give you an experience of what that furniture would look like. We allow you to erase some of your existing furniture, your old furniture that you want to replace, and we allow you with a technology called IKEA Creative to place the new furnitures and really get a look and feel of what that would mean and how that would come to life. And once you have seen that layout through IKEA Creative, you literally could then say, okay, I love this. Either you say you bring this design into our stores, work a little bit more with some of our in-store planning teams and decide to check out, or you check out on the website and complete and have it delivered home. So that's where with Creative, an application which we capability which we have launched, available on our web and our app platforms, you are able to now do this. Now, of course, I also experience Creative, and one of the things in here, what we realized is it still uh, relies on the fact that Bernard or Parag are amazing at home planning. When we see the picture of our room, a 3D scan of our room, we know exactly where the furniture has to go. We know exactly where the lamp has to go. We know exactly how to bring it to life with pictures and with pots and plants. But that's probably an assumption that might be true for a few, but not for the many. And now this is where we are thinking, how can generative AI come into the user journey as well? We already have a scan of your room. We could ask Bernard a few questions in terms of what's your style? Is it traditional? Is it Scandinavian? Is it modern? What sort of color themes do you like? What sort of lighting do you prefer? And with some of those basic questions, along with budget, I could, using generative AI, already give you a first few options of in your room, in your home scan, here is how 5 or 6 different options would look like. And through those options, you then can decide, I really love this. Let's work through a little bit more, and then you yourself do it. Or you might say, no, actually, I now need a professional planning service from IKEA to help me to bring it to the next level. And that's something that we are experimenting with. You already see part of it with what we have released with the AI assistant on the GPT store. But this is something that's in the works for us. And we are together working with our creative and also our planning services module to say, how do we really change that customer experience from a customer perspective? And that's just one aspect. I can talk about another example we are looking at when it comes to content. Uh, I recently came back from China, and one of the things we really see is content is at the heart of how do you communicate your product and your services to the broader community in China. And to be able to have this content generated uh, uh, needs experience, but also needs tremendous resources and hours from our coworkers, which we not always are able to contribute.
Hmm.
What is the opportunity with AI that we could really look to say, here is how with AI we could look to generate content, and probably with the same content, leverage it for campaigns, either for Singles Day, for Christmas, for Chinese New Year, with making some small changes and also reflecting the mood of what we want to call out. So that's another of those examples where we start seeing that that also gives an opportunity of really figuring out how using generative AI, using the tool sets, the translations, the video capabilities that generative AI has to offer. How do we also start looking to connecting, engaging, and inspiring our customer community across the world?
Very good. They're fascinating examples. I'm sure you've got many more. I'd love to look at examples around your operations and supply chains as well, because there must be lots of use cases for AIs.
Absolutely. And, one of the things, Bernard, that as IKEA, we have had to adjust because traditionally the IKEA is about three aspects, and affordability is at the heart of who we as a retailer are. And with our business model, where we always optimized our supply chain to a brick and mortar retailing, we were able to ensure that we were able to provide the lowest prices to our customers who are walking into a store. But as we transition from a brick and mortar retailing to an omni retailing, we also start seeing the supply chain itself has had disrupted. We're now seeing additional cost that comes into the picture, be it picking cost if you are asking for click and collect, be it a storage cost into a pickup location, or be it delivery cost, etc. And all of a sudden we realize that has impacted our vision of continuing to be affordable. And this is something we take seriously at heart. And here we are looking into how do we use AI to help us to bring affordability back into our supply chain. A very concrete example, uh, when we are shipping products to our customers, of course, we from the DC or from the stores, we bring them into the trucks. And typically, we have seen that our trucks are not really full to capacity, and we are shipping air. And of course, that comes with a cost of not optimizing my supply chain. So with AI, we are looking at what's the best way of filling in my trucks. And literally, with a coworker, getting the possibility here is how you could place the different parcels to optimize your ability to fill the truck. And with the truck fill rate, we start making sure that we are reducing the cost of logistics and hence helping our supply chain. That's just one example of how we are doing it. We also start leveraging our 400 plus store networks. They are also doubling up as our delivery centers. So, how do you bring, rather than shipping products from different parts of a country to a customer, how do you put in an algorithm which optimizes for cost, but also optimizes for a greener planet, and make sure that we ship the product from where it's the most available and is the most convenient for the customer. So these are some of these examples of how we are now looking to say use AI, the traditional aspect of it, and potentially the generative aspects of AI to say how do we fundamentally look to drive cost out of our supply chain. So a lot's happening in this space, and I believe with automation that we'll see, we also believe that a lot more for us to work through.
Very good. Yeah, I love all of those examples. You talked about using generative AI for content creation, for example, and
Mhm.
this is where brands have to navigate the ethical element of all of this and make sure that they're actually transparent, that this content is AI generated. And I think this can be a challenge. So how do you approach this in IKEA? I believe you've just recently created a digital ethics policy. Maybe you can share some of this with us.
No, absolutely. And this is one of the critical aspects where organizations need to take a much stronger stance and probably need to be leading than trying just to be compliant to some of the asks that might be coming our way with some of the acts that we see being passed. And here, from an IKEA perspective, true to our values, we are clear. It will not just be being compliant, to what needs to happen, but rather leading and showing the way of what we need to do to make sure that we continue to be mindful of the trust that our customers have put through. We have now been 80 years in the brick and mortar retailing. And when you talk of IKEA as a brand, it comes with a sense of trust. It comes with a sense of responsibility, that this is something that as we transition into an omni world, we respect that, and we are compliant to that. So we are taking a very human-centric approach. And by human-centric, we start first with a question that when we are applying AI, be it the traditional AI, be it the generative AI, what does it mean for the many people we serve? And by the many people, we also say our customers who are walking into our stores, or connecting with our digital assets and touch points, but also for our co-workers and for the community at large. And we start with, is it respecting the human agency and the human dignity? Are we keeping a human-centric approach at the heart of everything we do? Tech-powered, but human-centric. And we start with that question. And if we are positive on that question, we further deep dive into looking into the use cases. So when we also had our strategic view on what are some of the bets we want to explore, we are clear to say, here are some of the bets where we believe it's good for our customers, it's good for our co-workers, it's good for the community at large. Absolutely, let's leverage. But we also said there are some examples or use cases, probably it's not necessarily the best of where we want to be. And this are clearly the no-goes of what we won't explore as a business as well. And of course, with that as the going in principle, we are now working with both our product teams and our business to create the awareness to say we need to put digital ethics at the heart of it. And like you said, it means being mindful of being fair, taking out biases, driving equity and inclusiveness, being respectful of the privacy of the customers that they are working with, and most importantly, being transparent, being able to explain why are we recommending what we are recommending, why is AI proposing a layout a certain way. And as long as we are being able to transparent, here is why we believe, I think, and if we are able to explain that, that's where we continue to bring the trust along. So even before the rest of the world starting talking about digital ethics, we have had launched our first digital ethics and a data promise in 2020. As soon as we realized we are well on our way of our digital transformation, we are already an omni-channel retailer. And that's when we said, let's make sure we continue to respect the trust that our customers put into us with our data promise and our with digital ethics policy. And very recently, we also relaunched our digital ethics policy with a view on how do we respect data, algorithms, and AI, and how do we make sure that our policies are compliant. And it starts with educating the organization, both the digital product and the engineering teams, the business teams which are working with us, and also then taking a leadership stance and saying, as IKEA, we own up to this, and we'll do this not just to be compliant, but really to be a leader in this space and do more than what is required to drive ethics at the heart and a human-centric approach.
Yeah, this is great. So you've now got this digital ethics policy. You've educated your the people that will build these AI systems and digital systems. But how do you oversee this? How do you make sure that this actually gets implemented? Is there a sign-off process for AI projects? And if so, who is overseeing this? Who is there a panel that looks at them? How does this work in practice?
Absolutely. As we speak, we already have a team which is responsible for digital ethics and policy. And this team is tightly integrated into the development and the operations organization. So at any point when we kick off the ideation of a use case, it starts with presenting the use case with the digital ethics policy. This, of course, sits data within our data organization. So also if sometimes parts of the product organization and or business organization kick off something, but they miss to bring into, given that this is part of the first line leadership of a data organization, this role, you immediately become aware, and we start with that question. A, is it human centric to our principles? Is this a use case we believe that'll be adding value to our customers, our co-workers, the planet, and our company as a whole? And if the answer is yes, we then have the respective members from the ethics and the policy team work closely already at the design stage, rather than subsequently to be brought in during the test phases or the launch phases, because then you are course correcting and you are trying to work it backwards. So this is where the team is now has had been in place for a while, and is with the leadership of this team being first part of first line leadership for our data organization as well.
I'm always interested to know what the background of the people is that work in the ethics organization. So are they machine learning engineers? Are they data scientists? Are they philosophers in some cases? So can you share a little bit about who works in that department?
Absolutely, and I think for me, it's also been a revelation to meet some of the individuals who have been part of this organization, and you would tend to think it needs to be it needs to be one or the other, but one of our leader who leads the digital ethics policy team, she comes from NGO, having had worked in non-profit organizations, having had worked in different aspects, not necessarily technical, but in human-centric roles before, to having graduated into learning the data aspect of things. So she brings a good mix of what does it mean to approach this from a data science and an algorithm perspective, but also with an aspect of how do you bring the human sciences into it, and how do you marry. So we have seen a lot of profiles which are a mix of human sciences and data sciences, and the teams sort of are a marriage of skills from both aspects of this capabilities.
Very good. That is super fascinating. The other thing that lots of organizations that want to use AI need to embrace and sometimes struggle with is making sure that they have the right skills in the organization, that they are helping to reskill, because one thing that AI, and in particular generative AI, will do is will augment lots of jobs. And I know that, and you want people to have this awareness of AI and some data literacy, so they can actually help develop the apps and approaches that can leverage AI and data successfully in your organization. So I know that you have kicked off a huge AI and data literacy movement and at IKEA. Do you want to share a little bit more about what you've done?
No, absolutely. And I think you said it right. It's about creating that AI literacy movement. Earlier, before we started, we were speaking this different aspects of AI where it can invoke apprehension, or it can invoke opportunity. And to be able to help navigate the organization, it starts with creating awareness in terms of what AI means, what's coming your way. So already when we were starting to, as the data teams and the AI teams were starting to experiment with the first of the thinkings around what generative AI, when ChatGPT was launched, uh, one of the first things we agreed to with the group management at Ingka was, while we do this, and while we start looking into what are the use cases and what are some of the things we will explore, let's start with what we call an education for our leadership, because a lot of it right now comes from different media and different hype that you hear, and rather it's by creating awareness within the organization. And we had what we call leadership in a new era. This has had been a program that we used to bring some of our leaders on different topics through the different years. And we first started already last August, a leadership in New Era 3.0, where the focus was only AI. And we created uh, three modules, each of 5 hours. So dedicated time of 300 leaders across Ingka Group who were asked to be part of these modules. And each of those modules started with, the first module was basic introduction to AI, traditional AI, generative AI. What does it mean? What's coming? The second module was working through on what are the things we need to be mindful about AI, the digital ethics policy, the bias, the discriminations. We had academia participating from Stanford talking about what this could mean and how businesses need to be mindful of integrating AI as a part of that. And then the third is where we focused on, okay, now let's talk about what are the use cases we want to look into and where we are experimenting with. So, and this spread over uh, about 6 months, 3 modules distributed, where we brought the first 300 leaders and we generated a lot of content through this itself. And then these 300 leaders were asked to bring it into their respective countries and into their first lines to start disseminating information around this. So that's one aspect of the top down.
Mhm.
We also see the need to do a bottoms up where of course, you hear about co-pilots and you hear about what co-pilots have to offer. But clearly, we didn't want the whole organization to start experimenting on a public version of GPT or big co-pilot. And we basically said, let's create a co-pilot which is Inca-wide, IKEA-wide, and we started to have this being offered to our co-workers in corporate offices, in service offices, but also who are frontline co-workers, the 200,000. And here we start with some of the basic training programs that we have made available to say, what does Copilot do? What is, and some of these training programs are made available to each of our co-workers. We are also working to say we are catering to 200,000 co-workers, which is a very different segment from global to corporate service office to countries. And each have, there is an understanding to say they have their own ways of learning. They have their own ways of how they want to approach the topic. And we are trying to see how do we personalize it so that we make these trainings available in a format they best prefer to digest. So if we have a logistics co-worker in a store, how do we provide it in a format that he still can find his own way of onboarding with some of those learnings? And just to give you a concrete example, we are looking to target 30,000 co-workers already FY24, and trying to reach out to all of our 200,000 workforce by 2025, uh, fiscal year 2025. Clearly, we believe, you know, we, with AI and with generative AI, we will be automating tasks. And I say task, not jobs, because we differentiate between this. And as we do that, the jobs of tomorrow will change. And we believe that 60% of our employees will need to be reskilled to the jobs of tomorrow. And we rather start now to make sure that they are ready for the tomorrow that they will have to, that they are embracing it.
Very good. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the Copilot. So what technology is this based on? So you've got your own version of a large language model of some sort that is customized to IKEA. How are you envisage people will use this? What are some of the examples where you can see a real benefit of this Copilot?
Yeah, I think so. In our case, we decided to partner with Microsoft. Microsoft has been a long-standing partner with us. So we are using the Bing Copilot that has had been launched, but not the public version, the enterprise version, which is now, and it starts with how do I integrate this into my basic day-to-day. I want to prepare a campaign write-up. I want to improve description of a product that I'm going to post online on. but do so in an IKEA tone and a language. So I have some first inputs. Could you help me to rephrase this in a language that fits to an IKEA tone and that also fits to how our customers view it? Uh, I help with presentations. How do I create some of the first templates rather than having had to spend a lot of time? So these are some of the basic initial productivity examples that we are starting to launch out to the many co-workers. And then on the same co-worker tool base, we are starting to improve specifics, which then become very specific to topics that you are working with. So to give you an example, just and this was literally last week I saw where they have taken the Copilot and created what we call an AI toolbox, and they showed an example to say, here's a picture of a sofa that we have that's already available on our website. So an asset which is up and running and is available. Now we are going into Christmas, and we need to adapt it so that the images and the content are adapted to being relevant to a Christmas campaign that we are launching. Ideally, it would need a separate photo shoot, it would need a separate launch, etc., cost and time. But with one of the capabilities that we have with some of the toolboxes, it has an in-paint generator where you mark a certain part of the picture where you potentially want some Christmas decorations, and the toolbox then helps you generate an image with a Christmas tree standing behind the sofa, and all of a sudden you have it ready. So that was just one example of how they have taken this Copilot. The digital teams in China have been working with our commercial teams and have started to adapt that toolbox very specific to the commercial sales steering. And now it becomes a part of the toolbox, which we start bringing back into our broader Copilot. So we have started with some basic capabilities that we are exposing to the many. And then with them being involved, we are starting to add new capabilities into what we call the toolbox, which will serve specifics, but also the many.
Fascinating. They are amazing examples. I I'm really enjoying this conversation. What would be your top tips for anyone, or some of the learning points you can share? You've now been on some amazing journeys, actually put lots of this into production. There's many companies are now thinking about how they can use AI and apply this in your organization. What would be your top tips for anyone who is starting this journey now?
I think the biggest tip I'll sit with is be super curious.
Mhm.
Uh, I think it starts with that curiosity because, of course, like I said, the journey of AI will evoke different emotions, and it's for you to say which emotions you want to embrace with. And sometimes with ignorance, you embrace emotions. Ideally, you would not do so. But how do you drive away from ignorance? And the only way to do it is through curiosity. So start experimenting, start delving, of course, the movement top down, but also grassroots. Sometimes it's amazing to see what people on the ground, co-workers on the ground have to offer. Listen to them, make them a part of what you are experimenting, testing, trying, and learning with. And through that, and I would then also say be flexible and adaptable. I think the whole world is probably on early stages of the AI journey. I I would be naive to say one or the other organization has cracked it and we know exactly where we are heading to. Every second day is a surprise in this journey. So everyone is learning. It's about how do you embrace that learning and how do you do so with the power of, in our case, 200,000 co-workers that we have.
Wonderful. If you now look into the future and maybe look 10 years, 5 to 10 years ahead, how do you see technology changing the organization that is IKEA? How do you see furniture retail changing? What technologies do you keep a close eye on, and how do you see them impacting the future of your organization?
Yeah. I think with what we say, and I think Bernard, you also mentioned in one of your articles with what you with AI, it is one of those infusion points. The just as we had, and the the difference probably this time around is the speed of change is much faster than we could have ever anticipated. And if I speak of, I think uh, it will change how the customer experience journeys of tomorrow look like. And I'll probably be naive if I say I know exactly in 10 years how that journey looks like. But already with the examples I gave earlier, I think organizations like ourselves need to start thinking of how that customer experience and the customer journey would look like. What does it mean in terms of today? Even when you look at the capabilities we have with our webs and apps, we still have a certain journey in terms of home, PDPs, PLPs, checkouts, etc. that we follow. Is that going to be a relevant journey of tomorrow? What's our way of how we interact onto our mobiles and phones? Is that going to change to voice? Is that going to change to a different? So those are some of the things I believe will impact how customer engages with brands, and this is where we need to start uh, figuring out and adapting. The second aspect also I believe is with AI, you will also see a shift of a lot of the traditional repetitive task, if I may say so, being moved into leveraging AI, and the co-workers being rather leveraged uh, into more people-facing roles, more on the shop floor towards our customers, and that also needs a change in the skill sets of upboarding them to say, how do you get the co-workers of today to feel comfortable to work with an AI co-pilot, be it in content, be it in logistics, etc., to help them with what they do uh, differently. And last but not the least, I think it always zeroes into people. So from a skill set perspective, how do we uh, get our people to be ready, to be curious, to be ready for what's coming? How do we invest in them? And how do we also start realigning the talent in the organization to what's needed? If I talk of the digital organization that I lead today, there is a certain ratio historically of how we had product engineering, UX, and data teams. Maybe that ratio is no longer valid 10 years from now. So, how would that change, and how to anticipate, and how to make sure that it doesn't come as a surprise, but you rather are preparing yourself for that future?
Very good. This is a fantastic way to stop, I think, and come to an end. That was truly fascinating. Thank you so much, Parak, for sharing all these amazing examples with us. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Anyone who ever wants to rewatch this conversation or many other similar conversations about the future of business and technology, simply head to any of my social channels, my podcast, or my YouTube channel. Thank you, Parak.
Thanks a lot, Bernard. It was a pleasure.